everyone, it's Hunter and welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here, it is so nice to meet you. In today's video, we are going to be doing my March book wrap up, and I am so excited to be sharing with you guys because this month I have done an excellent job, in my opinion, of keeping up with my written reviews so that I'm more efficient with my summaries and reviews for you guys in these videos. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I read a total of 20 books this month, so let's just go ahead and get started because there's a lot of them. But before we do, be sure to subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget, I do a video like this at the end of every single month, or I guess the beginning of the next month, so you guys can keep up with all of the books I'm reading. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first book I read this month was The Lobotomist's Wife by Samantha Green Woodruff, and I gave this book 5 stars. This book is about a woman who works in a psychiatric hospital owned by her family after being personally affected by mental health struggles in her family. She meets a new doctor and they get married, and then they start to perform lobotomies on patients to cure them of their mental health problems. If you guys know anything about lobotomies, they're seen as cruel and inhumane now, but when they first started doing them, they didn't know this. So this often changes the way this changes a person's personality in extreme ways, and they can end up a lot worse than when they started. I thought that this book was fantastic. I didn't really say that I don't like historical fiction, but all of my favorite books are historical fiction, so I really was pleasantly surprised by this. And I think that society as a whole has come a very long way in destigmatizing mental illness, and I think it goes to show how much we really didn't know about mental health back when they first started performing lobotomies. As a person who struggled with anxiety and depression, I really found this very interesting, the way that they approached the subject from mild to severe cases of mental illness. Okay, so the next book I read is The Reunion by MEGHAN Quinn, and I also gave this one 5 stars. In summary, I am reading everything from my phone right here, so if I'm looking in this direction, that's why. So this book is about siblings Cooper, Ford, and Palmer, who are all back in their hometown to celebrate their parents' 50th wedding anniversary, and they're all dealing with something different that they can't seem to stop fighting, but they all find love in the midst of it. I thought this book was really cute, and I thought the sibling dynamic was a lot more realistic than that of most books about siblings. I loved how many perspectives were in this book because I feel like it would have been easy to have this as 3 different books from all the different perspectives, but I was really glad that it wasn't. I love that we saw each sibling struggle from their own perspective, from their partner's perspective, and from this perspective of both of their siblings. And I think it really goes to show that a lot of times we don't know what's going on with people, and that compassion and listening can go a really long way. So I really enjoyed that one. The next book I read is The Dancing Girls by M.M. Chouinard. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but I thrifted this one and I gave it 4 stars. This book is about 3 girls who become victims of a serial killer, but all over the country, so not in one place. There is a lieutenant who gets her hands on the case that's local to her, and she's determined to find the killer, and it bothers her that the case ends up going cold. She doesn't let it go though, and the ending is super shocking. The book is told in 3 parts about each victim and how the killer lured them in. I really liked this book. The ending was really shocking, so that was really nice to see because sometimes I feel like books like this can be predictable. I love that the reader learns about each victim, and I love that there is more than just one chapter here and there about the perspective of the killer, so we can really dig into his reasonings for why he does what he does. I thought the clues that brought everything back together were really clever. I did dock off a star because there was lots of explaining about how World of Warcraft works, and I understand the need for context, but I feel like the context could have been understood without all of the technical lingo of the game. Those parts were really slow and they were boring to me because that's not something I enjoy. So that was the only reason why I gave it 4 stars. Next is An Anonymous Girl by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. I gave this one 5 stars. It's about Jess, who signs up for a morality survey to make some extra money, and the professor running the survey takes a liking to her and decides to use her in real life scenarios. And my review of this is that people are crazy. I like this book and I like the idea of real life morality tests, but I thought there were some twists. I was overall not expecting this to be this was overall a solid domestic thriller, but I didn't have a lot more to say about it. The next book is one that has made its way into my top 5 of all time. It is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I would give this 6 stars if it was possible. Daisy Jones is a troubled girl with a lot of talent, and the Six is a band trying to make it. Their record label puts them together and they are unstoppable. That's pretty much the description of the book. This is so good. I genuinely looked at the cover for like 10 minutes after I finished, thinking I would never read another book again because nothing would ever compare. This takes place in the same world as The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Malibu Rising. and goes from the creation of the band and the history of Daisy Jones and then the creation of the Six all the way to present day. I loved the descriptions of Billy and his struggle with addiction, and I feel like you could actually see the struggle that he had more than most books describe it. I was torn for a good part of this as a reader because I was desperate for connection and love between characters, but also wanted Billy to keep his promises. Daisy is super talented and she's the kind of person that everyone wants to be and is generally what the world would call a main character. She is the main character of the book, but you get what I'm saying. And I love that she was not perfect in so many ways. She also struggled with addiction but never really wanted to do anything about it, and I think it really goes to show that nobody gets sober if they don't want to. I was torn when the band broke up, and this is mentioned in the book like very early on. I was torn when the band broke up because there were so many contributing factors that left me with a giant gaping hole in my chest, and each one of them weighed the same to me even if the rest of the band didn't know the reasoning behind them. So like each contributing factor, like this person thinks that they're the reason for the band breaking up, this person thinks they're the reason the band broke up, but really it was a whole bunch of things. And I love the twist at the end when you find out who is the one recording all of the interviews as well. And then lastly, I think that the way this was written was very different, and I laughed out loud when different characters contradicted each other because they didn't know what the other person said. If you don't know, this book is written very interview style, is literally just interview style, so it is just people talking, and so sometimes they would say something and then another person would contradict what they said because they didn't know what the other person said. And I think it took some getting used to, but this is definitely something I would absolutely love to listen to as an audiobook. The next book is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score, and I never actually read anything by her before. This one got 5 stars. This one is about runaway bride Naomi who runs to her sister's rescue only to end up in a new town where her rebel twin sister's daughter. Knox, the town grump, wants to help her since he saw her whole life go sideways right in front of him, all so that he can go back to his normal life. I thought this book was so cute. Naomi is a typical people pleaser, and that's something I relate to really hard. Naomi is also a twin, and so am I, so I understand the want and feeling of needing to rescue her twins so many times throughout this book, because through my life I've tended to do the same thing for my twin brother. I loved the relationship between Naomi and Knox as well, because she's a try-hard and wants to take care of everyone around her, and Knox forces her to let other people take care of her. Very grumpy sunshine, but we love to see a reformed tattooed motorcycle man be sweet to the people he loves. So I really, really liked that one. It was longer than I was expecting it to be, but it was super cute, and that one's on Kindle Unlimited. The next book is a thriller. It's Last Girl Ghosted by Lisa Unger, and I gave this one 5 stars. Ren falls in love with a guy she met and started dating through a dating app, and then one day he disappears after she shares the secrets of her past. He deletes his profile on the app as well as all of his social media, and even disconnects his phone when a private investigator shows up at her door asking if she knows this man who is actually the guy she was dating. They work together to find out what happened to the guy, what's his real name, and what's he done with 3 other girls that have disappeared after being connected with him. This is actually not what I was expecting, but I definitely found it to be a lot more scary, I guess, than the other psychological thrillers I've read. The unfolding of the mystery man through a digital trail is super clever, and I love to see how they work to find him. It's terrifying to think about meeting people online because they can be really creepy and want to kill you. Obviously it hurts when you find out you've been lied to, but to find a person who has been lied to in a year of difficult past the whole time. Anyway, it's hard to put this into words the way I was feeling when I was reading it. The next book is YA, and this is actually one I saw at Target, and then it ended up being in like I get emails about like ebook deals of the day, so that's where this one came from. But it is 14 Ways to Die by Vincent Ralph, and I gave this one 4 stars. To summarize, Jess's mother was the first victim of a serial killer 10 years ago, and now she has the opportunity to have the world help her look for him. She gets creepy messages and is threatened as her following grows, and she continues to get closer to the killer as time goes on. If you liked A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, I think you'll really like this one, as it gave me similar vibes. I liked the social media aspect of this, as the main character was live vlogging her day and growing rapidly in following. I also thought the ending was not what I was expecting, so it was good to see that, because I do feel like this story may have been predictable. I did give this 4 stars because instead of 5, because there were lots of references to England and cities in the UK, but the school system they were using words like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, when I know I've seen people from the UK have no idea what that means, so it just felt a little bit inconsistent to me. That's the only reason why I docked off a point. The next book I read is Girl A by Abigail Dean, and I gave this one 5 stars. And this book is about Lex, who is also known as Girl A. She helped her siblings escape from the House of Horrors leftovers her childhood home where they were abused by their parents. With her father dead and her mother in jail, she tries to move on with her life, and then her mother dies in prison and she's left dealing with the estate in an attempt to turn their house of horrors into something positive. She gets a signature from each of them to be able to move forward with her plans. This book is from Lex's perspective, but she shares information on what went on in their house and details their abuse while telling where her different siblings are now and how they're coping with their trauma. I really liked this, and it was a lot more psychological than I was expecting. There was actually quite a shocking ending, and I loved that each character was focused on the stories of each sibling while being interwoven into her journey to get each sibling to give their blessing for the project. And each child experienced something different, and it was cool to see how they turned out as an adult based on their different experiences. So the next couple of books are all part of a series. So it is Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover, and I gave this one 5 stars. Sydney finds out that her boyfriend is cheating on her with her best friend slash roommate and promptly moves out. She has nowhere to go, so her neighbor Ridge has her move in with him and his roommates as they begin to write music together for his brother's band. I thought this was really cute and definitely lived up to the hype in my opinion. There were definitely some moments when you want to do something badly for the characters, but also you want to yell at them for doing what they're doing because you want to make decisions for them. But of course you're not in their position, so it's hard to say what you would do if you were actually in their position. It's hard to tell you much without giving the whole story away. So there's that. And then to continue on with that, the next book I read was Maybe Not, which is actually a novella sequel to Maybe Someday, but you don't have to read this book to understand. You have to read this before you read Maybe Now, but you don't have to. Let me just back up. I gave this 5 stars. I thought it was a really cute novella told from the point of view of Warren, who is Ridge's roommate, and it tells the story of how Warren and Bridget get together. I said I love seeing how books that I know and love being told from another perspective, and feel like this was really cool because if you read Maybe Someday first, then you would know that, then you know the other side of the story, and I feel like this is something that Colleen Hoover does really well. So if you've read the Hopeless series, you'll know that Losing Hope and Hopeless is the girl perspective and Losing Hope is the boy perspective, and when you read them, like, I don't know, it just ties in together. You would think it would be really repetitive, but it's not, and I think she does that really well. The light is changing outside and I don't like it. So the next book is the last book in the Maybe series by Colleen Hoover, and it's Maybe Now, and I gave this one 5 stars. This is a continuation of Maybe Someday, and you'll learn from other characters' point of view as well. You definitely need to read Maybe Someday first because this would be a terrible standalone. I love that this book literally started the exact next day as when Maybe Someday ended, and I love that it was not just happily ever from the get-go, because a lot of romance novels end with a couple getting together, but I really appreciated that the relationship was not all rainbows and sunshine. I also really like Sydney because she's literally the nicest character I've ever read. The next book I read is actually a debut novel for this author. It is I Don't Forgive You by Aggie Blum Thompson, and I gave this one 5 stars. We have Allie Ross, who is new to the DC suburbs, and she's trying to fit in with the other moms while also trying to have a photography career to be proud of when she is framed for murder. Then everything else in her life falls apart after secrets she has tried so hard to keep hidden come out to her entire neighborhood. I'd say this is a typical domestic thriller in the suburbs. I felt the whole time I didn't know whether to or not to believe the main character in her innocence or not, because I feel like often the main character is suffering from delusions and you never know what to believe, but I felt surprised by this ending. There were several moments where I thought I was getting to a stopping point at the end of a chapter and it would leave me shook enough to say just one more, although I really appreciated the length of each chapter. They were not too long, so there were a lot of natural breaks, but they were just like 1 or 2 pages and it made for a quick and easy read. The next book I read is The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen, and this is my second book by them for this month, and I gave this one 5 stars. Vanessa is Richard's ex-wife, and she tells the story of her trying to talk his new fiance into not marrying him. So I feel like psychological thrillers are typically slow in the first half, but then the second half leaves you shook like the whole time, and this was truly no different for me. This was a highly anticipated book for me, and I don't think it failed me. I sped through the second half. The first half took me a minute to get into because the chapters go back and forth between 2 different perspectives, and those perspectives are written from different points of view, like author point of views. So one is first person and one is third person, but I also think that helped to keep them separate, the different timelines, so it made it easier to figure out like who you were reading, if that makes sense. So really liked that one. The next book I read is The Perfect Stranger by Megan Miranda, and I gave this one 4 stars. This is not the first book I've read by her, so I was expecting a lot, so I did have a lot in mind for her because I really do enjoy her books. But we have Leah, who is running from her past and decides to move to a new small town in Pennsylvania with her old old college roommate Emmy. Soon after they arrive, there is a woman who has been beaten nearly to death that looks a lot like Leah, and then Emmy goes missing. Leah used to be a reporter, so she works with the detective to try to find out what's going on with her roommate. I gave this 4 stars because there were parts of this that were slightly confusing to me, but it could have just been me and not the book itself. I loved Leah's character and how her past slowly comes out, but I also love that she's a teacher for some reason. Her being in school and the descriptions of some of her characters, I don't know, I just like really appreciated that. I read another review that said the ending was not the greatest, but the way the story was told made it a great book, and I have to agree. The next book was another Megan Miranda book, and this one was super highly anticipated for me. It is All the Missing Girls by Megan Miranda, and this one definitely got 5 stars for me. So Nick goes back to her hometown, Nicolette goes back to her hometown after 10 years to fix up her dad's house so they can sell it. While she is there, she's drawn back into the drama of the night her best friend went missing. The case has gone cold, but when another girl goes missing in the same area, she's determined to figure out what happened to both girls. This was phenomenal, and I can see why so many people hype this book. It starts with an intro into what's going on, and then the next 2 weeks of the book take place in reverse order from her 15th day in town all the way to her first day. I don't feel as if this book would have had the same effect had it been told forward, like going forward, not in reverse. And I've read another book that was written in reverse, and I feel like this was far superior. I like that the story was told what was happening each day, but also flashbacks and memories of Nick working together, the memories of what happened to her friend. And honestly, I thought it was super shocking in the end, and knowing what you know at the it's not the beginning, knowing what you know on day 1 really changes the way that you view what happened on day 15, even though you learn about day 15 before you learn about day 1, if that makes sense. So I really enjoyed it. The next book is one that had been on my hold at the library for a while, but it is The Night She Disappeared by Lisa Jewell, and 5 stars for me. I really enjoyed this one. Teen parents disappear from date night. Her mom is looking for her, but nothing ever comes out. A year later, someone finds a sign that says dig here, and she's able to open the case back up. The story is told through different timelines, through the missing teen mom before she was missing, through her mother, and then the person that finds the sign. And I know that this description is really vague, and honestly it doesn't sound that interesting, but this book, I literally devoured every word. I literally devoured it in one sitting. Literally read the whole thing at one time. And there were so many things that didn't seem connected that wove together perfectly, and the ending was really satisfying. Honestly, my description and my review of this does not do the book justice, so I would highly recommend it because, like I said, my review is not very good. But I think it's really good if you like thriller novels, so I really liked it. The next book is Notes on an Execution by Danya Kukafta? I think that's how you pronounce it. I gave this one 5 stars. This was very different. This book is about Ansel, who is an inmate on death row, and he is scheduled to be executed in 12 hours. And Ansel recounts his feeling about his crimes as he counts down to the time that he has left. It also goes back and forth from the perspective of the women in his life, so from his mom, his wife's sister, and the head detective on his case. There is no secret that Ansel committed the crimes, so we're not trying to figure out who did it, but the way the author told the story from the perspective of the detective was thrilling to me. She was connected to Ansel's past and was able to put together the pieces quickly with the clues made available to her. The mother made me so sad, and learning about how charming Ansel was from the wife's sister really helped to develop Ansel as a character. This was a great telling, in fiction of course, of a roundup of basically American men serial killers. And it was very Ted Bundy-ish in my opinion. I will say that there is an author's note in the book that describes it perfectly, and she's the author, so of course she describes it perfectly, but she said, average men become interesting when they start hurting women. Notes on an Execution was born from a desire to dissect this exhausting narrative. So good. The next book I read was actually, I listened to this on audiobook on Scribd, and I really enjoyed listening to it. It was a great listening experience. It was a very short book, and it was read by Lauren Graham, who is Lorelai Gilmore, so I definitely enjoyed that part. But it is One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle, and I gave this one 4 stars. When Katie's mother dies, she's lost. Her mother was her very favorite person and her very best friend in the world. She and her mom were supposed to go to Italy together to discover the places that her mother loved in her youth. She decides to go by herself, and then she runs into her mother at 30 years old. And she explores Italy, gets to know her mother when she was young, and learns that she really didn't know her mother all that well at all. I gave this 4 stars because I was just expecting something to happen. Something. But it just didn't happen. I thought the overall story was really cute, and I feel that Katie really found herself and was able to move on from her heartbreak after losing her mom. And I overall felt like I was fighting with Katie for some parts because I just didn't love her decisions, but she was redeemed in the very ending. Thus, earning 4 stars instead of 3. If she was not redeemed in the ending, it definitely would have gotten 3 for me. I was expecting a lot from this book because I really loved In 5 Years, but this one just didn't do it for me. And reading the reviews, it seems like a lot of people feel the same way, and I feel really bad about it. And the last book I read in March was also done via audiobook on Scribd. I got a free trial for Scribd, so I am devouring every book I can get my hands on, or my ears on, I guess. Is Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey, and I give this one 5 stars. It is the sequel to It Happened One Summer. If you guys have read that, then you're probably gonna love this one as well. This is about Hannah and Fox. Hannah is the sister of the main character, the main girl in It Happened One Summer, and Fox is the best friend of the main guy character in It Happened One Summer. And basically they've been texting every single day back and forth for months. Hannah finds a reason to go back to the town that he's in and ends up staying with him at his house. They are determined to be friends and not ruin it, but they have undeniable chemistry. I think this book is so cute. I personally love a romance where the biggest problem in the world is that the world thinks he's a womanizer, because sometimes, especially when you go from a book where you're learning about serial killers and there's an execution to be scheduled, something just lighthearted is so good. And I just think it was really cute. I don't really have much else to say about it other than I thought it was cute and I thought it was well written, so 5 stars for me. That is all I have for today's video. I have been waiting forever to film this video because I knew I was gonna cram in a few more books. I literally have listened to 4 audiobooks in the last 3 days, so I've been eating them up because my free trial on Scribd, if you want to sponsor me ever, feel free to hit me up because I would enjoy that so much. But anyway, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I try to post a book video once a week so that I am varying up my content. So if you guys enjoy book content, please be sure to subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked this one, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!